Hello there, friends, peeps, folks, whatever you want to refer to yourselves as. Um, so, how do I put this? I am a little bored, having a hard time sleeping. So, I'm gonna make a video. I don't know when I'm gonna post it to my channel. I might wait until I'm done with the Cornerstone Church stuff. I might not. Um, let me make myself a couple of notes to look into some things. So let's see. Um, Tantic. Okay. Neurodivergence. What else? There was the Saddleback. There's the hybridization, and there's the what was that other thing I was gonna talk about? I'm trying to think. What was that other thing? It was the evolution thing. Um, I can't remember right now. Um, it's okay. It'll come back to me. I have it recorded that I said I was gonna do it, so I'll worry about it later. Um, but anyway, so I was thinking about like evangelization and religion and how it affects the neurodivergent and how like there's a difficulty in reaching neurodivergent people from people of faith. Um, and so I did a little bit of digging, and there's not much out there. There's not much that I was hoping to find, but I did find a video from somebody. She goes, but let me just make sure. I think this person's pronouns are she, her. Let me just see. Open link in new window. Crap, I didn't mean to do that, but that's okay. About um oh nice. Okay, so I think her pronouns are she, her, but correct me if I'm wrong. Um Now this is a an artistic creator who discusses Christianity. Reacts to things from a Christian perspective. Great stuff. New videos every Saturday at 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. I would like to get a hold of her at some point. Maybe just see. Switch account, Pedantic Skeptic, Stephanie Speaks. I'm gonna subscribe. Woo! Okay. You know, just because I respond to, you know, a lot of religious content, and, I will start, branching out into non-Christian religions. I think I may already have had a, response to, like, somebody who wasn't Christian, but in any case, I don't want this whole, account to be, or this whole channel to be responses only to Christians, and, I would rather, respond generally to a lot of things, right now it's a lot of Christian content just because it's, what's the most out there in front of me, and I will start to kind of reach out to other stuff as the channel progresses. And I've said it a couple times. I don't hate Christians. Well, I don't really hate anybody, if depending on what you mean by hate. But I'm open to engaging with people. But what I was having a hard time with was just a lot of these people who want to reach people, to make them Christians, are not considerate of how neurodivergent people, process things in their brains. And so I found a neurodivergent Christian. I mean, I know other neurodivergent Christians, but they don't make YouTube content. So I would like to watch one of her videos. It's called A Message to My Neurodivergent Peers. And the description, we'll just look at it together. But I wanted to watch this video because this is, something that's important to me. It's, kind of, it's not all about Christianity, atheism, religion, things like that. It's also about um, being okay with yourself and with other people and acknowledging that we all have differences. And when you're dealing with neurodivergent people, you're dealing with, sometimes vast differences in how we think and how we function. And it doesn't make us bad. It just, if the goal really is to save people through Christ or through any religion, you want to be somewhat considerate of, how neurodivergent people can be communicated with. And a lot of people lack that. And it's unfortunate. And I don't want to say it's their fault, but I feel like there needs to be a better job done by religious organizations in making neurodivergent people feel safe and welcome. And I don't see that happening all that much. So, without further ado, we are going to watch this, I don't know how long the video is because there's an ad, but we're going to watch Stephanie's video. Um, and, I don't know if there's going to be anything to really respond to, in terms of like, well, this is incorrect because of X, Y, and Z, or if it's just more of like, oh yeah, this is an interesting take, whatever. But I would like to watch this. So let's get going. Let's see here. All right. Oh yeah, we forgot. Okay. So video description. I love you all so much. Circled how to tell others about Jesus. I hear people hate having religion shoved down their throat. Or see pushy and cheesy spam messages. Yes. Um, you know, I've been told that neurodivergent autistic people are not really reachable. This is exactly, what I'm trying to point out. I don't have perfect words is the best way of sharing. Um, anyway, let's, I really hope this isn't just the transcript. Alright, let's watch.
Therapy for me, I think when the pandemic...
I've often worried about how to talk to people like me.
Same.
Because everyone has told me that people like me don't believe in God. People like me...
That's not a nice thing so I don't want to say that we need to be, prioritizing, belief, non-belief, things like that, like, we can't make moral judgments about people just because of, their stance on God. We can't. There are people who are religious who are neurotypical, there are non-religious people who are neurotypical, and there are religious and non-religious people who are neurodivergent. And they, the overemphasis on, belief in God is a serious problem, that needs to be addressed. And I think that, I think in general, autistic people are done a disservice by religion. I think that there, are specific examples of religion being good for autistic people, and, whatever works for you is fine, but, it is shitty how, some of these ideas are here.
Me don't want to hear about that. People like me, but I'm people like me. I believe that neurodivergent people are looking for someone to tell them who they are.
I don't know. I don't know how true that is. I mean, you really shouldn't make any generalizations about neurodivergent people, because part of neurodivergence is being really difficult to pin down in terms of, like, I don't want to say predictability, but in terms of how you process things. Though it's called neurodiverse and neurodivergent for a reason.
Perhaps this is true of everyone, but I believe it is especially true of those whose brains work differently. I speak as an autistic person, and therefore much of my perspective here will...
Just a quick aside. I'm curious what kind of tree I'm looking at. I think it's some kind of apple or something in the rosaceae, but I'm not sure.
...will be rooted in that. Therefore, I will mostly be referring to autism and autistic people, but I believe this applies for other neurotypes out of the norm, especially, though, if you are what people call neurotypical and you receive something out of this, that's also wonderful. Autistic people tend to run very close with trauma and hurt.
Yes.
Distress. Lacking a sense of self from a society that tells us that we are all wrong.
Yeah. And I don't think, neurodiversity is a matter of right versus wrong. It's more of a different operating system, if you will.
Some have found that clinging to identity through disability or other groups and speaking loudly has secured them as who they are.
Hang on. Oh, Jesus. God damn it. I'll clean that up later. I didn't draw it. No, never mind. It's fine. It's all fine. I just realized something, but I'll worry about it later. God damn.
No one's going to tell them any different. They make their own rules. But really, someone set that up for you. Told you that if you found disability as your identity or whatever else is your identity, then you would know who you are.
So I don't think so. I think one of the and I'm not going to I don't want to necessarily hate on neurotypical people. I think neurotypical people have this kind of singular way of quantifying identity, where your identity is the thing you focus on the most, or if there is any level of focus on something, that automatically becomes your identity. And I think neurodivergent people have an ability to kind of run multiple thoughts in multiple brain processes simultaneously in a way that neurotypical people just can't. And so, being self-aware that you're neurodivergent doesn't mean A, you're disabled, or B, you're using that as the only aspect of your identity. It is important to acknowledge that you are neurodivergent because you inherently work differently than anybody else. And, in my life right now, I'm having a really majorly hard time because there are neurotypical standards that I'm not living up to, and nobody knows what to do with me. I don't know what to do with me. And, it's nothing to do with God and religion. It's a lot just to do with my general way of dealing with other people. And I don't want to go too deep into it right now. I'm just not in the mood. But it's really difficult because there's everything had been working just fine up until this point. I mean, not just fine, but since I started college, things have been going, I don't want to say my way, but things have been going well. And then I moved out here and things just kind of fell over again. And I'm stuck not knowing how to deal with that. And there's nobody out there that can help me right now. And it's really isolating. But there are neurotypical standards for a lot of the ways that we're viewed.
You would have a purpose, a reason,
I said something that I didn't mean literally, which I very rarely do. I was talking to somebody about I can sometimes be very blunt. And he's like, there's a difference between being rude and being blunt. And I was like, not when you're autistic. And I didn't really mean that literally, but for an allistic person, the distinction between rude and blunt is different.
Direction. Celebrate all the odd, quirky, weird, out there, fun, crazy, silly, childlike things that people told you to resent about yourself. And
see, I like that, she's a Christian, but it's not the focal point of her video. And it doesn't, to me it doesn't really matter if somebody's a Christian or not, or anything. It's more about how they can relate to other people. And I don't want to tie Stephanie down to any particular way of relating to other people, but, you know, she can reach people and it doesn't have to have anything to do with Jesus. And a lot of these neurotypical, like apologists, religious people, they just can't do that.
You would prove to the world that you know who you are. I just think that a lot of people who have done that are holding on to something empty, because at some point, all the things to yell about run out, and so does purpose. For many who are much more like me, who are not so confident to identify ourselves as this or that, or confidently proclaim that we have defined ourselves, who are willing to admit that at the end of the day we don't understand the answer to "who are you?" I hope I can speak candidly in a way that makes sense.
I mean, I can be multiple people at the same time. I can be a graduate student and a Drapsamine river and, a frog breeder, and I can be a roommate. I can be, a fan of The Offspring. I can be you know, I can be a lot of things at once. I can be somebody who absolutely adores the Fern Phlebodium aureum. Um, and, I don't have to be like, everybody who I encounter must know Phlebodium aureum. It will be cool and kind of fun, but, there are things about me that, maybe aren't apparent to me.
There are many things out here calling to us. Are you this or that gender? Is this or that your style? Do you belong to X, Y, and Z group? What cause it is that you will rally behind? For many of us, when we heard that we are neurodivergent, we thought we found an identity that truly fit us best.
I mean, like, I don't know if that's a reference to self-diagnosis or not, but, I think that self-diagnosis can be very problematic. But that's not the point here. I'll just, kind of take a word for it. The issue is that, what's it called? Neurotypicals like to accuse us of making neurodivergence, the center of our identity. And I don't look at it that way. Doesn't mean I'm correct when I say this, but, it's not something we can escape from. And so it's not really a part of our identity. It's, the container for our identity. Oh, Jesus.
Perhaps you're like me and thought that it would be a place you could really belong and be yourself, whether the neurodiversity movement or any other identity-based group. It's beautiful because as you join, you get your own lingo, have almost a kind of protection and kinship, and learn about all the things you're supposed to stand for and against. It's a purpose, it's a direction, it's an identity. But if you're not a big personality who draws people in and can speak over others or play the right cards that pull the right strings, you're likely to find yourself in a place that's all too familiar. Others are trying, once again, to mold you.
Yes. And a lot of these modern apologists fall into that category. And the problem is, let's just make the assumption that, Christianity is true. I don't believe it is, but it doesn't matter for the purpose of this example. If, Christianity is true, and, everybody needs to accept God, Jesus, and, all the baggage, not baggage, all the stuff that comes with it. What does it say about the system we're living in, where neurotypical people run the show, overwhelmingly when it comes to the religion? And, the religion itself is put in such a, because a greater proportion of neurodivergent people are atheist compared to neurotypical people. That's just a fact of life. And, It doesn't mean one group is better in any way than the other. It just is part of how this works. But, you know, why is, you know, a God who is supposedly all loving and making everything the way it is, who requires you to do things to get into heaven, but making it so off putting to some people who he created to be a way that finds this sort of stuff off putting in the first place. It doesn't make a lot of sense.
They're telling you what words you should say, what you should care about, what you're doing all wrong. And if you don't fix it, you can't call yourself a member of the group. Maybe you start to see how empty it is. How they're still screaming and yelling and tearing down and bullying and all the things you've hated seeing in life thus far everywhere else. I did. I was devastated. I guess I thought I found a place I'd really, truly fit. Because these people told me they knew me, that they'd fight for me. But they're only human, making a human construct, playing games to forcibly persuade and influence culture and those around them. It's tiring. It's exhausting. It's empty. Always been so sick of feeling empty.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I frequently dissociate. I don't feel like I'm even there. Um, when I'm under a lot of stress, like I am right now, it gets worse, and it can become a real problem. Like I am prone to doing this like when I'm driving, and it's not good. It's not healthy or safe. And you know, I'm okay talking about that because at some point somebody's got to say it because I can't be the only one that's experiencing this.
Worthless, useless. If only I was better at this, if only I was that way or that person or...
Yeah, because there is this expectation that you are going to be a conformist in one way or another. Um, and the um, the incredible emphasis on what should be arbitrary, like social convention. Um, like I've been judged for not necessarily knowing the right things to say when somebody's having a problem with X, Y, and Z. I've been like given a hard time and run into problems because I don't pick up on like when somebody's upset. And things certain things don't make sense. Like I got into an argument with somebody. I'm not gonna say who it was, but I got into an argument with somebody. My long story short, my roommate owed me money, and he was gone for a few days because his grandfather was really really sick. And most people, for whatever, however they do this, somehow know like the minute he comes through the door is not the best time to go after him about the money that he owes you. And for me, it's more of like you know I'm gonna forget if I don't say something now. And this roommate, I text. I mean, he did eventually pay me back, but like when you text him, he doesn't always remember, so you have to say it to him to his face. And it's like, well, if the minute he walks through that door is the minute I happen to remember to say something to him, it's gonna happen then. And I'm not as concerned about whether or not he's dealing with anything else. And in my mind, it shouldn't matter. But it is what it is, and it can be hard for me to step outside of that. Um, and some things just feel like expectations that are there for no particularly good reason.
That's how people are. They by nature coerce others into their own image. It's selfish, really. Finding themselves or their ideas to be the best, so they demand you to look and act like them, even though they say they stand for the opposite.
Yeah. Um, I see a lot of this. Brief tangent, like TikTok is like, don't get me wrong, I can spend an hour on TikTok just looking at silly stuff, and there are a couple of accounts that I really, really adore because they have some, content that I just find amusing. But there are these weird trends that pop up out of nowhere, and they last for a couple of weeks and then they disappear again. Um, and sometimes to be ironic, I will wait a couple months and then I will participate in the trend. But I also have a lot of just obscure stuff on my TikTok that like I fed a mantis and I played the audio to "Praying" by Kesha, because the mantis was preying on an insect. Just as kind of just a silly thing, because that's kind of the lighter side of my sense of humor. Um, and like it doesn't make sense to people, but like does it have to make that much sense to you? It's just a silly phone app where people are doing whatever. But anyway, um, and there are some things that I'm seeing people do, um, like going live on TikTok and other social media while they're driving. Please don't do that. I mean, that is really dangerous. And I don't want anybody to get hurt when they do that sort of thing. Um, you know, I really don't want to see horrible things happen because people, want to go live. And, there's a lot of stuff like, and I'm not saying this to hate on Christians, but a lot of Christians are going live to talk about Jesus while they are driving. Please stop doing that.
They told you that your identity is neurodivergent, unless you disagree, unless you don't fit their mold, unless... just like everyone, just like always. And the reason for being slips away because why are you fighting for something that you're starting to not even fully believe in? If you're tired, if you're exhausted, if you're broken up over the way the world works, the system that constantly fails...
I mean, this is why I like to get lost in plants and insects and frogs and, 10 other things. It's why I like to, you know, be with myself, but like I'm also kind of an extrovert person, and so it can be, for like my whole life I've really like struggled with wanting to interact with people because I like people, but also, not liking people because they exhaust me, and I don't like being exhausted. And, I need to be, intellectually stimulated and I need to be, doing something, and it's really hard to like find people to hang out with and interact with, you know, and it gets me into some trouble, like I've been in some, really toxic and bad situations, and I'm not going to expand on those here because that's not the point of this video, but I've been in some really bad situations because of, you know, my hope that like this person is going to be somebody who's good for me, or just I'd rather not be without somebody because I have nobody else. Like that happened a lot when I first moved to Colorado.
reinvents itself under a new name and fails again, try Jesus.
Oh, I think she's just quoting.
There will never be a perfect group of humans. I'm not saying that you can't identify as a part of a certain group, but that group is not your full identity.
I agree. I will make a video one day on this channel of just mundane shit that's going on in my life. It has nothing to do with religion, atheism, whatnot. Like maybe I'll have some clips of me, moving some orchid protocorms. Maybe I'll have clips of, the frogs. Whatever.
And I know deep down you know that too. This world does not and will not ever truly understand you. It will always want to shape you into its image. The truth is, we're always being shaped some way and somehow. But if you're tired of being constantly used and abused to be pushed into a form that only hurts you more, try Jesus. I wholeheartedly believe that God created us in this beautifully different way. It's not all sunshine and rainbows, but I believe that we have been created in such a way that we can see what God made and appreciate it in a way that most cannot. When I sway side to side and back and forth, and
I'm trying to figure out what kind of I'm looking up close at the buds of this tree. It's got those lenticels on the branch, like you can see if you look on the this side, um, the like reddish brown bark has all these little white dimples all over it. Those are lenticels. That's very typical of cherries. I think this is some kind of cherry that we're looking at.
And hum to sounds most don't notice. I believe that I am uniquely appreciating each part that God created, the vestibular sensations, the particle vibrations. And for such a God that crafted the human body and mind to be capable of existing the way that it does, with diversity and differences all carefully created to make us so that we can see something He made that others cannot.
I wonder what her thoughts on evolution are.
I think perhaps just as we know something a little more than others about His creation, He knows something more about us than others do.
I don't know. I think that there's I know that some parts of the Bible can be interpreted as, I don't want to say condemning, but like looking at certain neurodiversity, forms of neurodiversity as a curse or, something like that. Like, and I'm not saying that Stephanie is at all a fan of Greg Locke, but I know Greg Locke had this whole sermon ranting about how like autism is a curse by the devil or some shit like that.
As an autistic person, I struggle to understand things I haven't gone through.
Yes, and it's not just that. There's also the struggling to understand how somebody's brain can work in any way that's not your own. How can people, you know, not just get up and move on from like a relative dying, like, and I'm not saying this sounds insensitive, but like when my grandparents died, it's like I don't know why people would be sad about this if, the people who were, really mourning at the funeral were Christian and supposedly believed that these people weren't actually gone, they were just in a better place now, and it makes me wonder, did they really deep down believe that, were they, being upset because it was conditioned into them, or they were just, mirroring what other people are doing? I don't know. I don't really care. When I say I don't care, I don't mean that like, I don't mean that in a dismissive way. I mean that in more of a, it's not really important either way, like I'm not going to think any differently of them no matter what the answer is. But anyway, I digress, like I often do. Um, but the difficulty here is that you know, and I was still kind of a loosely Christian person at that time. Not really. I mean, I tried to be as religious as possible for like a couple of months when I was in middle school, and it didn't feel organic to me. But in any case, I was like, well, if these people are going to be up with the glory of God in heaven, blah blah blah. Why is this a sad thing that they're dead? Are we just being selfish that these people have died? And then there was the other part of me that was like, well, like my grandmother was 70 something, I believe, and she had cancer and things like that. So like, did we expect like, because to me, being upset about something generally comes from something unexpected happening. And it's not that when something unexpected happens, I'm automatically devastated. But when something unexpected happens, I respond more strongly than when something expected happens. And I think to some degree most people do, like when you get into your car, you're going to respond a little bit differently if you get into a car accident than if you, make it safely to your destination. Um, and so I was always, like curious and like, I wasn't really obviously sad at the, death of, people in my family because, I mean, yeah, my first dog, because he was, like not even 2 when he died. And, I was really attached to my dog. And, there were a lot of issues between my mother and I because of this very thing. There were, like, she was not appreciative of my response to her parents' death. And in my mind, it was kind of selfish of her because, she expected me to act a certain way for her. And, I never understood, you know, why we would get upset if we truly believe that the person is going to heaven after they die, but B, um, or if, you believe in any kind of afterlife, not necessarily just heaven, but if you believe in any kind of afterlife, why is somebody dying, such a problem? Um, and then B, why, would it be in anything bad, like, especially if, you're old and you're suffering because of your health conditions and things like that, like my grandfather was, why would, that person's death be anything but, like, I don't want to say a good thing, but at least, an end to the bad things.
So even the people around me who are also autistic or otherwise neurodivergent sometimes cannot grasp what I experience. Sometimes that's lonely. But there is someone who does know.
Jesus Christ. I mean, like, if that's what you're gonna believe, fine. But the thing is, you, like, nobody's obligated to be religious.
I believe that we're about to see
Ooh, look at the weeping willow.
something magnificent, and much of it is going to come from us. From the misfits, the weirdos, the stimmy ones, the quiet ones, the hurt ones.
The giraffes of Myron.
We are the ones who see that these things are not working. The world's systems and ways of doing things are not working. It's only causing people to hurt more. People have told me that autistic people tend to not be believers in God, partially due to being very logical.
Yeah, I can see that. There's there's a bit more of a filter. Um,
But I find God the most logical.
I would like to hear more about that at some point.
find him as creator the only thing that honestly makes any sense.
I feel the exact opposite way, and I'm not saying that either of us are more valid than the other, but like, there's there's a disconnect there.
When God breathed life into us so that we as humans have a soul, a spirit, he knew us. He knew our differences.
I mean, it almost feels like she's more hopeful for, somebody outside of, humanity who can be, I don't want to say unconditionally there, but who can be a connection. And, that's fine. Like, for me, it's dogs and, things like that. I get into an argument with my partner sometimes. We're both, we both have different approaches to dogs, which is fine. But I, kind of think that, like, we need to be, less quick to euthanize a dog. Um, well, I shouldn't put it that way. It's hard to explain. Like, one of the things that we argue about is, like, we have a lot of ways of saving premature human babies. But, like, if puppies are even a few days premature, they're certainly going to die. And, I feel like we should be doing more to save premature puppies. We should be doing more to, you know, make sure everybody's able to have a dog. I want to see, like, social welfare programs that, like, pay people to feed their pets before they pay people to feed their kids. Things like that. And, it's not that I don't think human life is precious. I just think that, like, human life isn't more precious than, like, a cockroach's life, for example. Um, and, that's in a way coming from a biological perspective, and I know it's counter-revolutionary because, like, for me, the only reason humans tend to value other humans over non-humans is because we've been, selected to do that by evolution, and, it makes perfect sense in terms of, like, ensuring that, you keep the people you can fuck to make babies with alive more than, like, incompatible species, which is partially why we tend to get more attached to like other mammals than we do to things that are taxonomically further from us. There are more dog owners than tarantula owners, for example. And take that for what you will. I'm not trying to diminish people's feelings towards other people, but what I'm saying is that, there are clear pathways at which we can come to an appreciation for our own kind that, I don't want to say are arbitrary, they're powerful, but they shouldn't be relied on. I I don't really know pain from dogs. I know pain from other humans, and I would much rather, have my dog alive than my sister alive, for example. I don't like my sister, and I'm not afraid to say that. Like I would never harm her, and I would never advocate for anybody to harm her, but I would feel less bad if something bad happened to her than if something bad happened to my dog, for example.
He knew what struggles we face.
Especially like if something horrible were to happen to my sister, I would probably have the dog, and the dog wouldn't be in Connecticut right now.
Knows. He sees. The world is trying desperately to force people to be good. Force them to be the picture of morality they imagine. Force them, coerce them, threaten them into saying the right words.
Yeah.
Most of the time, it purely breeds performative actions.
I would agree with that. And I don't want to say that neurotypical people are necessarily bad, but like, I think on average autistic people are more genuine and more, I don't want to say trustworthy, but yeah, more trustworthy, more, not necessarily easy to get along with, but I would rather be near other autistic people than, anyone who's holistic. I would rather not, interact with holistic people if I had a choice. Because they actually have the ability to be manipulative. And I mean manipulative in a bad way. They have the ability to, really fuck shit up that autistic people just lack. Or maybe not lack, maybe they're above it. I don't know. It's not that I've never done anything spiteful. I've certainly done some spiteful things, but like, never anything horrible.
Because the heart has not been changed. There was no free will, no growth, no true being, just a fear of what would be said or done to them. God is different. God facilitates a change in our hearts.
If, if there is a God, why would he allow neurotypical people to exist? Like, it's just a little weird, because, like, neurotypical people really like to be conformists, and they really like to bow down. And so, like, is that how God gets his kicks? And I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm trying to just get a good grasp of how this sort of shit might actually work.
In our beings, in all the places we fall short, in all the places we hate about ourselves because for whatever reason we can't seem to overcome, God fills.
It's one thing to, believe in God. I don't know, from this video particularly where she arrived at and settled on Christianity versus anything else, but that's, neither here nor there. It's just something I'm a little curious about.
He doesn't force us to love him or
That is violence against plants. No, I'm just kidding.
To follow him. He calls to us because he loves us, not because he wants to manipulate us to get his way and then throw us out just like
read Exodus.
Like so many have in the past. God gives us our identity. He knows who we really, truly are. He knows the things that we can't seem to put into words. He knows our secret fears. Gave us the ability to have joy over what others...
Burbs. What kind of birds? Are those loons? No, I don't know what those are.
...find silly or inconsequential. It's his laws of order that so many like me value. When you're done trying to find out who you are, when you're done asking everyone else to give you a purpose, when you're done trying to rely on yourself to fulfill those things, try Jesus.
No.
You may imagine church as a place full of people who will want you to be perfect.
The other problem with church, and I've mentioned this in previous videos, it's very loud in there. People, like, maybe it would be different if I, was allowed to, wear, noise-canceling headphones in church. But, it's very loud in there, and that can be, a little bit of a problem.
Maybe. But God's people are just human beings like you, like me, looking for the answer, looking for a way to overcome, to be free, to be loved, to fulfill a purpose. What I love about Jesus is that he was in many ways unconventional. He carried out the heart of the law, brought the heart of God to the people. This is often how autistic people are. We tend to break the social norms. We don't tend to really get them.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense, but, what else? Never mind.
We want to be real and authentic with people. Jesus was real and authentic with people that others had cast aside. To be like Jesus is in part to be different. To me, that uniquely sets up neurodivergent people to be used by God. 1 Peter 2:9 says, "But ye are a chosen generation, a royal priesthood, and holy nation, a peculiar people, that ye should show forth the praises of him who hath called you out of the darkness into his marvelous light." I believe we are in a unique position to be called out of the darkness. We are chosen. You are chosen. You are important, loved, cared for by the God who created the universe. We are peculiar, but let us be his peculiar people, called out of the darkness into his marvelous light. You might think it is not possible for someone like you. You might think God will reject you like others have. Maybe you've done things or said things or felt things that you think exclude you from God's love. All you have to do right now is to say, "Jesus, I need you." God doesn't sit there with a list of...
So I have a question. Serious question. Is God judging neurotypical and neurodivergent people differently? Because it almost seems like he should. We'll just grant the existence of God for the sake of this discussion. But neurotypical people, as great as they can be, have a way of functioning and a way of processing and a way of, whatever, that's very stereotypical. And they should be the ones held to the standard of conformity. And they should be, held to different standards. And, I remember when I was a kid, there was a magnet on my grandparents' freezer that was like, when God judges somebody, he puts the measuring tape around the heart and not the head. And, I kind of took that to mean that, your intentions are a lot more important than your actions, or they're at least a lot more, important than, your intelligence. And, I think to some degree that should be, intuitive or, make the most sense, whether or not God's real, and, I'm not worried about that right now. But the question is, if neurotypical people and neurodivergent people are fundamentally different, in some of the most important things that make us human, why would we be judged in the same way? And if we aren't judged in the same way, how is that fair? How is that just? It's kind of a weird conundrum here. And this is not meant as a gotcha. This is just meant as kind of like a, let's be curious about this. And, I don't know if there's a clear-cut answer there, but, the neurotypical mind is, I'm assuming, like, were the authors of the Bible all neurotypicals, or, was God speaking through an eclectic mix of neurotypical and neurodivergent people? Um, it's something that I gotta know.
Of your past sins. He's not delving into your Twitter feed from 6 years ago to cancel you. He knows the things in your heart you never said aloud, the things you did in secret that haunt you.
Got a lot of that, that's for sure.
Yet all you have to do is ask for forgiveness. Jesus, I'm sorry.
I mean, like, as long as it doesn't involve, like, standing in front of a priest. Because that shit's a little weird.
I was wrong. I did things wrong. I said things wrong. I wanted bad things for people.
That almost sounds like you're holding us to a neurotypical standard, though.
I was hurt.
It's hard because while I don't want to, have people punished for, wrongdoing, I also don't want people to, it's like, I'm always conflicted between, like, if somebody does me dirty, somebody does something wrong to me, and they get away with it, you know, that's fine because, like, it doesn't matter if anything bad happens to me. And, like, who am I to, demand that, I be treated correctly, but at the same time, who are they to think that that was okay? And, there's always that, like, internal struggle between,
Hurt. I was angry. I'm imperfect. I don't know how to do things or what the right words are, but I'm sorry. I don't want to be this way. I want to follow you. I want to know you. I want to know what it's like to feel your love. And
the other thing is, like, I'd be less, opposed to, like, knowing, Jesus or anybody like that. Like, if there was, like, if there were no stakes to it. Like, Christianity puts, like, eternal salvation as, like, the incentive to, follow it. And that just doesn't work for me. I want something more organic where, like, it doesn't matter if I am part of it or not. I don't like compulsory things. And, that doesn't mean that it's untrue, but as far as, a relationship with somebody goes, you know, things shouldn't be forced.
to be called out of darkness, I need you. It starts there. Just repent. That means that you acknowledge that you've done wrong things and don't want to do them anymore.
Some of this imagery is very distracting. And I don't want to accuse her of being inconsiderate, but sometimes people's special interests involve plants, and it can be really difficult to focus on the words of a video when I'm, like, trying to figure out if, like, those tallish things that are sticking out of the grass are, like, plantain, or if it's a different species of grass, or, what is it, and, like, I don't want to, like, look away from the screen. Let's just keep going.
Ask God to forgive you. 1 John 1:9 says if we can...
People really just need to stop, like, quoting the Bible. It's, like, I'm sorry, but for me, it doesn't do anything. It's just not helpful to me. And, like, again, like, this doesn't have to be for me, this can be for anybody.
Confess our sins, he is faithful and just to forgive our sins and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness. He's not here to judge you or hold your past over your head. There's nothing too much or too bad that God won't forgive you.
That is just a little scary. The implication there is, as long as you're sincere enough in your belief in your apology, you can get away with whatever you want. And, like, I feel like that's, more of an issue with neurotypicals because they, can take that and run with it, whereas neurodivergent people tend to be more, along the lines of, I'm, not intending to do this bad thing, so I'm just not going to do this bad thing. But, I can see a lot of scenarios where, people will do bad things to one another, you know, because they believe that they'll be forgiven for it. And, that is not a good mode to operate under.
He loves you. He wants to be in a relationship with you.
I mean, like, if that's his prerogative, I've laid out, the terms, and I don't want to say terms as though, like, I should be dominant over this, but, like, if this is so important to God, he knows what's going to reach me and what's going to get to me. And, I do hope to, if this is true, find, the truth of it. I haven't found that yet. And, like, this is a very engaging video for me because it's, not just some holistic, inconsiderate piece of crap, preacher or apologist, running their mouth. It's somebody who, is more like me, and that's easier for me to digest. But at the same time, I'm still not finding it compelling in, and I know that the video description said that that wasn't the intent anyway, which, I appreciate.
I know you've been searching. Jesus is who you've been searching for.
No. Not really. It's hard to explain. Oh, fuck, I'm tired. I'm gonna have to, like, get through this and go to bed, but, for me, it's more about, I don't want to say having the right answer, but, being as correct as I possibly can be.
You just didn't know it. Romans 10:9-12 says that if you confess with your mouth the Lord Jesus and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, you will be saved. For with the heart one believes unto
Some of these people just can't resist, like, reading from the Bible.
righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. For the scripture says, whoever believes on him will not be put to shame. For there is no distinction between Jew and Greek, for the same Lord over all is rich to all who call upon him. For whoever calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. We believe that we've all messed up. That messing up, whether intentionally or unintentionally, hurting others, doing wrong things, we call that sin. Sin hurts others and ourselves, and the guilt and love of it keeps us out of relationship with God and eventually will lead to our death. A long time ago, God's people would offer up sacrifices.
Didn't Mary, who was without sin, eventually die as well? Anyway.
That had the blood of animals to atone for their sin. After all, the wages of sin, or the payment for sin, is death.
Does that go back to, like, the whole, like, with the fall? Well, which is weird, because, like, the fall happened when Adam and Eve ate from the tree of knowledge, right? Tree of knowledge of good and evil, or whatever. And then the angels guarded the tree of eternal life. But weren't they going to have eternal life anyway? Or was it like, okay, if you eat from the tree of eternal, or, like, was it, I created you and you're not going to die as long as you don't eat from the tree of knowledge. And once you eat from the tree of knowledge, the only way to not die is to eat from the tree of eternal life or something like that. Like, anyway.
But then God came in a body as Jesus. So this is where we say he gave his only begotten son, Jesus.
For a couple of days.
walked among us and showed us how to live, helped us to understand the heart behind what God had asked of us, took away the separation that required people to go through holy priests to get to God by dying on the cross, giving his life, his blood as the ultimate perfect sacrifice for our sins.
I mean, basically, because God made a rule and used his judgment by which to decide whether or not we were worthy of him, said, hey, guess what? You guys are not worthy of me. However, I'm going to make my own son walk with you, die, and come back to life. And once that happens, I will find it okay to take you guys in again. I mean, if that's, I mean, like, that sounds like something an autistic person would do, honestly, or maybe ADHD, but there's something a little funny about that. I mean, I don't believe it happened, but I think that, if that is the way that things ran, um, and like I'm thinking through it, and oh man, I'm tired. I mean, like, I guess there are some conceptual, like, I mean, like, if we really want to stay open-minded, we can't say that it can't ever actually happen. But, then again, you have to run through that process for every, possible conceivable religion, and at that point, it's like a moot point. But in any case, there are just some things about that whole story that are just like, we are not really, are we talking about an all-knowing, all-powerful creator?
And in 3 days he rose from the dead after.
I thought it was on the third day instead of after 3 days. Like, those are different things, because if it's after 3 days, then he rose from the dead on the fourth day. But if it's on the third day after being crucified, then he was only dead for, like, what, one full day? Because the first day he's crucified, the second day he's dead, then the third day he rises again, so he's dead for one full day. Is that looks like a member of the Emeraldaceae because the ovary on that flower is inferior, so you can see on the unopened flowers all the petals rise above that swelling, which is the ovary, which is an emeraldaceous trait. That's probably allium, which is in the Emeraldaceae.
After ascending to heaven, he left us a comforter, the Holy Spirit, that God's Spirit could dwell in us, and we
Not even gonna say it.
wouldn't have to be alone or without him ever again. If you will confess Jesus as Lord of your life, that you want to follow him, you want him to show you how to live right, how to love
I wonder if this person's special interest is Christianity or God.
who you are, what his ways are, and believe that God has raised him from the dead, that he's not just some random.
I should have said one of her. I mean, like, I don't know how many, like, I have like 6 special interests at least. It's exhausting, folks. You know, I don't mind, neurotypical people watching my stuff, but, just remember, if you're neurotypical and watching my content, don't look at my content through a neurotypical lens.
Guy who lived a long time ago and is dead now, but that he is a living God in the spirit with power over death, hell, and the grave, that he gave
That looks like poison ivy along that fence post.
himself as a sacrifice to clear you and forgive you of your sins and put you in right standing with God, restoring relationship with God, and simply call out the name of Jesus, that
Jesus.
you need him.
I mean, I don't want to yell right now because I mean, my roommates are they don't have very good hearing, but I don't want to, disturb them at what time is it? It's almost 2:30 in the morning. Oops, did I just mute that again? God damn it.
Follow him. You will be.
Somebody taught me that you can pause and unpause videos with the space bar, but sometimes I accidentally hit the M key, which mutes the video.
Saved. It doesn't end there, but this is the first step. sincerely in your heart, wanting God, wanting to be set free from sin.
But, like, God's gotta know that some people aren't going to sincerely want Him. Because, I can conceive of people who are not brought up that way to even consider God in the first place. Where do they fit?
And guilt, not ruled by shame or fear, not following after empty systems.
And the other thing is, I know that there are some Christians who say, like, well, if you're never taught anything about Jesus, you can't really, like, you don't have control over that, and so, you'll still go to heaven. And I have two questions about that. One, that seems like a very arbitrary, especially from a scale of an all-powerful God. That seems like a very arbitrary um, way of assessing or judging. Like, it's an arbitrary reason to have a second standard for a separate group of people. Like, I would think that everybody gets judged by the same standards, which has its own issues. But, if you're going to judge people by different standards, there has to be a good reason. Which is like, why is there a system in place where there will be people who have to be judged under, like, I guess God can do whatever the fuck he wants, but it just, to me, doesn't make a lot of sense. But then the other problem is, if that is the case, why are we going to, Christianity would be best if indeed people who are never taught about Christianity get to go to heaven. Like, the goal is to get people to heaven, right? So in a way, Jesus wouldn't be the only way into heaven, if you're just never told about him in the first place. Because an all-powerful and all-just God, in theory, wouldn't hold it against you if the idea was never put in your head. And that would be the most efficient way of getting everybody to heaven, is just not to put that in their head in the first place. Like, get rid of every copy of the Bible, stop having people go around talking about Jesus, and, let people be born and, never hear about the Bible and Jesus and God and everything associated with it, and then die when they die, and they'll just be in heaven anyway. That seems like the most, efficient way of getting everybody into heaven. And, if that's not the way it works, if indeed you have to know about Jesus and things like that in order to get into heaven, then how do you account for the people who have no control over what they accept in terms of God and Jesus and things like that?
Systems people have made is the first and beautiful step towards a wonderful relationship with Christ.
I keep wanting to make an irreverent, dirty joke. I'm not going to, because, I'm not here just to shit on religion. I'm here to just give my, sincere thoughts on some of this stuff.
It's not easy. When you gain freedom from something, old ways and old things like to try to get your attention again. Your life will not be perfect, but it will be worth it. If you can, find a church to become a part of. I know things are different right now.
COVID.
During the whole pandemic situation, so if you're more comfortable, you might look for services online for now. But start to learn about the Word of God. Learn about Jesus. Learn about how to become more like Him. I love you so much, and I believe God is calling us for this time as His peculiar people to cause a real change that will be evident in the hearts of people, not just performative actions out of fear of retaliation.
Okay. Let's see. Female voice hearing. I don't. That. Okay. Why don't. Let's see. Jesus Christ. Used up a lot of time. Goddamn. Let's see what other stuff she has on her channel real quick. That was 2 years ago. Okay. Christians are judging the wrong people. Disagreement does not equal hate. I agree. Is the NIV published in 3 reasons to volunteer at church? Why should Christians go to church? What other stuff does she have? Let's see. Recently uploaded. What? Ooh, I do like this. This Christians, please stop doing that. Why? John Christ returns. I don't know if I'll... that might be a fun thing to watch. What I want. Oh. How to help unbelieving friends. That might be, oh no, let's see. I'm a mess. Okay. Yeah, let's, at some point we should, ooh. Yeah, this is definitely something I would like to, look more into. I single-handedly ruined Easter service. Oh boy. Fun stuff. Okay. Let's, truncate this. Alright, that was kind of refreshing. We, can look at, people from all neurotypes, although I really want to see more, like, autistic apologists or, other, neurotypes represented, I mean, I don't want to see, apologists all over the fucking place, but I'd rather, if there are, going to be apologists, I'd rather they be more like me. And I know that's a stupid thing to say, but there are some serious deficiencies in how the majority of these apologists and, religious people in general reach neurodivergent people. And, I, again, want to be careful about, like, saying you should have any one particular thing be, the core of your identity. I think that there are exciting things about life everywhere. Um, you know, and I say this as somebody who, like, also has a lot of, like, apprehensions about just being alive. Like, I really have some, shit I gotta work out because there's, sorry, I'm just, like, adjusting my head so that you're not, like, unable to see the Luna. The Luna moth, the Luna moth. Um, and like, I don't get the impression that Stephanie there is like, oh my god, that's made of stained glass, and it's all stained glass only supposed to be in churches, and you're blasphemizing because you have a stained glass Luna moth. I know that there are some people that would do that. But oh yeah, and there's also a painting of a Luna moth up there. I really like Luna moths. Okay, like there's just something about them that I really like. Like the memes about like there's like a meme out there where it's like me explaining one thing and it's like a quick like 3-second audio and then me explaining why I like insects or something and it's like an audio message that's over an hour long. Like that would be me and like Luna Mazur to wrap some ire on here. Um, but I will definitely be looking at some more of this stuff. I might you know I may not respond to everything on her channel because I really don't want to single anybody out. I really want to like I want to respond to things that are problems. I don't think her content is necessarily a problem. Um, you know, the stuff that she has on there, and it's hard because I don't want to just respond to stuff I disagree with. Like I want to give credit where it's due, and I want to have like interaction or conversation about like all sorts of stuff. And so like I'm torn between like I don't want to just seek out stuff that like I'm definitely gonna object to wholeheartedly and rip it to shreds. Like that wouldn't be fair, and that isn't necessarily the best use of my time. But there are a lot of issues with how like people treat neurodivergent people, and you know there aren't a lot of people that get that, and it's really difficult because you know you would think allistic people hold autistic people to like a standard of being somehow like needing to be good at interacting and good at a number of things that they don't give us. Allistic people want, us to be flexible in our thinking, be flexible in our ways of communicating, but they don't do that themselves. And it's, they put themselves on the pedestal of knowing how to be good communicators, but they're not. They're really not. And, maybe not all neurodivergent people are as pedantic as I am or as literal as I am, but, if the goal really is to get everybody to know God and whatever else they want, they need to know how to adapt to a group of people that they deemed as unable to adapt to them. They call themselves the adaptive ones, the ones who have the more flexible ways of thinking. Yet they want us, who they've already said, well, like, you guys just are more rigid, but you can't think like we do. Well, no shit, you just said that we're rigid and can't think like you do. Why are you surprised at this? I don't know. So, if you're an allistic person watching this, I want you to sit in the corner and think about Durapsamiron. If you're not an allistic person watching this, I also want you to think about Durapsamiron. Manifest Durapsamiron. And if you're a Durapsamiron watching this, I want you to just keep being you. I am going to live on nothing but grape leaves and wine and grape juice to be as much like Durapsamiron as I possibly can. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. When I was younger, I was obsessed with Durapsamiron for a long time. Although, like, my first rearing with them, and I'm not gonna, I don't want to get, like, into all the circumstances because it's really hard, but my, first go-around rearing Durapsamiron, they, cannibalized as larvae, and it was really a traumatic thing to see, but, I was dating somebody, and, person sent me a picture of a Durapsamiron, and I was like, that's Durapsamiron, and the person saw it on the side of their house. It was great. Yeah, I annoyed the shit out of this person, and I'm sorry about that. Maybe I will send you the link to this video and tell you to skip ahead to the end. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't know if this person wants to hear from me. But yeah, most apologists and religious people don't know how to talk to neurodivergent people. And it's a little bit irritating. It grates on me. So, I appreciate, this creator a lot. So keep it up, it doesn't matter to me, like, that you're religious or anything. It's, there's shared humanity that we should all be recognizing, no matter like what another person believes. And I'm trying to be better about that. Like I'm trying not to be too mean to like non-vegans and things like that. It's kind of difficult. But you know, we're all getting there, and so yeah. Um, Thanks for sticking this one out. Honestly, this is a long one. I'm going to refrain from uploading it tonight because it is almost 3 in the morning and I have to get up in a few hours and I really should try to sleep. So this was a journey.